Doctor, thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Took a little while.
It did.
But that wasn't anything to do with you or I. That was to deal with society in general.
Right.
But it's very good to see you. Thank you for making the trip down to the studio.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
So much I want to ask you today, and I mean that. I definitely want to get your story, too.
Okay.
As I mentioned to you, when I started the show, or the outline of the show, we had a list of 100 guests. I made myself 100.
Okay.
People I thought were interesting and dynamic, different fields.
Yeah.
From people like yourself in education and counseling, all the way to like athletes, and just a variety of interesting people in Pittsburgh. So you're on my list.
That's cool.
And I just reached out to you blindly.
Right.
And thank you.
Absolutely.
So, again, thank you for being here. It means a lot.
Cool.
So, you have a show called House Call.
Yes, I do.
And right off the bat, you are a licensed and certified
counselor.
Counselor. How's that work?
So I have a PhD in counseling psychology,
right,
and I have a license in counseling.
Okay.
It's very confusing.
You have your own practice.
And I have my own practice.
Okay.
Right. So I teach at Cal U, but I have a private practice of my own. It's in McMurray.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea of House Call, what is it, and how's it gone at this point?
Yeah, so about a year and a half ago, really about 2 years ago, I really started thinking about the fact that I was seeing certain problems in my practice over and over and over again. And I realized that, like, I'm helping people one at a time in my practice. And there's got to be a more efficient way to help people.
Okay.
And so I said, I had just come off of a political run, and I had all these people paying attention to me on social media. And I said, well, what if I used the spotlight that I now have to help people? Mm-hmm. And so I created, I had always dreamed of television. One of my childhood dreams is I'm going to have my own show one day. And so I said, you know what? This is kind of the age where people are just doing this, like you and I were talking about.
Absolutely.
And so I said, if there's a moment where now people would actually pay attention to me, I have credentials now, I have a spotlight, let's just create a show. And the idea is I want to shine a light on things that I see in the world that maybe people need to talk about and aren't talking about. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes I'm talking about clinical issues, but I also like to talk about the world and how to navigate the world in a way that allows us to kind of feel better about it. Because I just feel like there's way too much unhappiness going. You know what I mean? There's a lot of distress, particularly in the world right now. And my goal is just to try to like chip away at that a little bit.
Did you have a plan for House Call? Was it written out, or did it kind of just evolve?
No,
it's okay because we evolved.
Yeah. So my only plan was I want to help people. I want to give voice to some issues that I don't feel like are talked about enough.
Right.
And honestly, the idea House Call, the name House Call, came from the fact that we didn't have a studio, and I was like, well, we'll just do it at my house, and I wanted a kind of a funny play on words,
Sure.
the doctor making a house call, you know what I mean? And it was really just spitballing. It was like, let's just see what happens. And over the course of the last year and a half, we've just kind of learned what works, what doesn't work, and we're still learning. We're still,
right.
In fact, on the way here, I was talking to Dana Miller, the director. We were talking about, like, what if we do this and what if we do this? Yeah, it's just a learning process, just trying to figure out. And now people are watching it, and it's always weird to me when someone will text me like, hey, that was a really good show. And I'm like, you saw that? You know what I mean?
Somebody out there's paying attention.
Right.
I know. So in designing that, would you not agree it's got to be perplexing, because I feel like I have it all mentally figured out, what we're going to do and what I'm going to ask of my guests and all this stuff. And that's not the hard part. The hard part's all the rest of this stuff. Would you not agree?
100% agree. Yeah, the conversations themselves are easy.
Right.
But it's everything else that no one gets to know about except for us, right?
I'm not complaining.
Right.
We're just saying.
But there is a lot that goes into it. Yeah. People don't realize, because they think you're sitting in your living room having a conversation with someone. I'm like, you don't understand what goes into that. Like, by the time it got to that moment, so much stuff has happened.
Oh, no question.
And then afterwards, all the editing and all that stuff.
Execution.
To make it presentable for everyone. Oh, my goodness. It's a ton of work.
Yeah. And I was that was but see, it was interesting for me because I wanted that in the beginning because I didn't have the conversation thing figured out, but I figured I could really dive into the technical part, figure that out, and the conversation will come because I know how to talk.
Right.
If the good Lord gave me anything, I'm not afraid to talk, and I think in this sphere, would you not agree, of web-based shows, the people that really understand conversation and like it, there's a great avenue for them.
Yes, absolutely. And that's really one of the things that I've thought would really, really play into my strengths is I like to talk, and when I was out on the campaign trail, that was the number one thing I would hear is you sound so sincere, you just seem so personable, and I'm like, that's because I'm just honest. I'm just being I'm being a regular, you know what I mean? Like
right.
It's not a show in the sense that I'm putting on some airs. I'm just being the person that I am because I'm not afraid to just be that person, but it makes it so that other people are comfortable just talking. And that's really the goal, is to just have honest conversation.
Absolutely
exactly
right.
like what you're doing. Let's just talk and be real.
Yeah, be real is really, I didn't think of that when we started, but my guests have used that phrase over and over and over again, and they're so right.
Yeah.
It's the essence of being present,
right,
and being real.
Yeah, and I didn't understand until I ran for office how rare that is. Because I'll never forget the moment I was at a campaign meeting and I had to go because I was running to some other event, and then this old lady came to me as I was getting in the elevator, and she said, "You're just so sincere," and she was saying it like it was refreshing to her.
Sure.
And I was like,
probably was.
And exactly, I was like, wow, think about what that means. That most people you run across aren't sincere. Right. And so that being sincere seems like a virtue. And I'm like, well, what is everybody else being then? You know what I mean? Like that's crazy to me that people are so into presenting properly. And I just want to be honest 100% of the time. That I want to. I'm not there. There are times when I have to kind of hold back, and everybody does that. But my goal is to be able to be me 100% of the time, because that's when you're being your best self.
Right. I would agree. All right. So we'll come back to that.
Okay.
And a lot of other topics as well. Take us back. Are you a resident of Southwestern PA?
Absolutely, born and raised.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about childhood.
Okay. I've had an interesting childhood. So
we have time, pal.
Yeah. So I was born into a kind of like middle class family, kind of the ideal situation, the white picket fence. My father was an executive, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom, 3 kids. Beautiful neighborhood, right. Like life is grand. And then my father committed suicide when I was 7, and we were all there when it happened. So needless to say, it was like the most tragic thing you can imagine. And it was all about racism, by the way. So my father was an executive let me just leave them alone. But he was an executive, and the company was not handling race relations super well.
Hey, Doc,
and so my father, being the only black executive,
but you end up leading
was considering whether or not to jump in and help the black workers. And pressure from both sides, from the executives and from the workers, got to be too much. And one day he came home and shot himself in the head. And so that's the beginning of my life. There's the stage. The stage.
As a 7-year-old.
Yeah, as a 7-year-old, right? And so for several
brothers and sisters,
I have a brother and a sister. My sister is younger. My brother's older.
Okay.
But as a young kid, I didn't necessarily know exactly what had happened to me. You know what I mean? I wasn't fully able to understand what had just happened. But slowly but surely, it started to take a toll on me. And so I started to really struggle mentally, emotionally. to the point where when I was probably 17 or so, I started to really feel like, okay, something's wrong. I'm not right, mentally, emotionally. Went off to college studying music. I was a jazz trumpet player, but eventually left college. Sophomore year of college, I just left middle of a semester because I couldn't handle the thoughts in my head anymore. It was just stuff going nuts in my head, and it got so bad that probably 21 or so, I attempted suicide myself. And so I was just like, I don't want this life anymore. This is not fun for me. I was in complete despair. And so I attempted suicide. My mother went off to work. My mother was working as a nurse at the time, or maybe a nurse's aide. I forget where this was in the story. But I had it calculated. She's going to be at work. I'll take all the pills that I have saved up. I had a stash of pills because I've been in therapy and all, for years. They tried everything under the sun. They threw everything at me, and none of it worked. So I had a collection of pills in my drawer, and I thought I'll take all those, and that'll be enough. And my mom will be at work, so she'll be fine. It'll be good. But I miscalculated. She wasn't going to work. She came home, and I was like, man, I can't have my mom find me the same way she found my father. And so I went and told her what I'd done. She rushed me to the hospital. They pumped my stomach. They were like, yeah, definitely, had you not found him, he'd be gone. So now I'm alive, right? And, at first, that was even more despair. Like, I can't even kill myself, right? You know what I mean? But the pivotal moment for me in my life was my mom eventually, after a week or so of me just kind of literally sitting on her floor watching television, she said, all right, you got to get up and do something with your life. You're not going to sit and do nothing. I can't watch you waste your life away. So you're either going to get up and do something, or you're going to get up and leave here. And that was it. That was what I needed.
What age?
I'm like 22.
Okay.
And so I decided, well, if I can't die, if I can't live this awful life, then I want a different life. Mm-hmm. And something happened. I don't know. A light bulb flicked in my head, and I realized maybe I can dedicate my life to helping other people. Because what had happened was, throughout my early years, I'd gone to different doctors and therapists and programs, and none of it ever helped me. None of it felt right for me. And I said, I want to be the person that I couldn't find when I needed help. And so I said, all right, I think I can help people navigate their problems. So I went back to college. This time I went to Pitt. I studied psychology and sociology, and I dedicated myself to helping young people. And so then 20 years go by. I got a bachelor's, a master's, a PhD, started a practice. I've been working in the field for the last 21 years, and my specialty now is teenagers. I get constant phone calls when there's a teenage boy out there who needs help. I'm the one they call, and I have now so I've learned to use my story to help other people, right? Because I've been in that despair moment, and I came out of it, and I can now say, in all honesty, my life is the coolest thing ever. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And so I can say to people, listen, I get it. When you feel awful and you want to die and you don't feel like you can go on, trust me, I'm telling you, it gets better. And people can see it in my eyes. He didn't read that in a book. He had to have lived it. And that's for me, that's the hook. The hook is, I've been where you are. And I've just been able to help a lot of people by using my experience and being able to truly understand what it feels like.
So you're working primarily with adolescents at risk.
Right.
Okay. So let's talk about that for a little bit. I think it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out. That's yours, absolutely.
Thank you.
There should be a cold one and a room temperature one, whatever you want.
I love that. Yeah.
We think about
that's
our
very
guests
thoughtful.
We think about our guests here for sure. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that even in the last 15 years, and again, I'm dating myself a little bit here, but I've watched the evolution of how important these damn things are.
Yeah.
And to carry it further, how important to the youth social media has become.
Yes.
Doctor, I see it almost as a fantasy world that is part of their persona, and then there's this reality where I think, again, in prior generations, there was a lot of reality and maybe some fantasy with TV or music or
Yes.
games or things, but more reality than less fantasy. Today, the lines blur so often. Do you think that is one of the major issues that youth are facing today?
No question. Yeah, I'm convinced. I'm convinced that social media is a net negative in our culture. There's lots of good that comes from it. We are connected in different ways. I can talk to people that I went to high school with. 30 years ago, that wouldn't have been a thing, right? And my family that lives around the world, around the country, can see my baby, growing up because I post the photos, and that's cool. But the impact that it has on young people today, I am thoroughly convinced it is damaging to their lives. I'm seeing an increase in anxiety. I am seeing a complete reliance on technology. They're unable to communicate in the ways that you and I would have had to when we were young, because that in-person, that personalized communication isn't actually necessary in their world. And so, yeah, they see an image of their friends because everyone's on Instagram presenting this image of what their life looks like. And so you spend your day looking at your friends and thinking, oh, they're having all this fun. 'Cause now when your friends have a party and didn't invite you, you get to watch. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, and think about what that does when your friends have a party and you're not invited, and you have to recognize, oh, wow, all of my buddies are now hanging out right now in this moment. None of them are texting me. None of them are calling me. Why wasn't I invited? And when I was young, you wouldn't know. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so you learn to not worry about it. And so, yeah.
It's immediate, too.
It's immediate, and everything is immediate. And so there's an impact from that because they don't know how to wait for things. I've literally had to help clients understand when your girlfriend is not texting you because she's in class, it doesn't mean anything about how she feels about you. It's because she's in class. You know what I mean? But it's like, well, she always texts me back immediately. So why does she not text me back when she's in class? Well, because she's in college now, and they don't. We frown upon that whenever you, And I've had people that couldn't handle that.
The immediacy of just the web in general, going back to when texting really became entrenched in society.
Yeah.
Before, if you wanted somebody, you called them on the phone, and cell phones were wonderful because, wow, I can do this from my car, I can do this somewhere else. But I think texting, which I dismissed as a business person in, I don't know, early 2000s, dismissed it like that. Why would I? Yeah. I mean, I have a BlackBerry device to do my email, but email is kind of a more involved process.
Right.
We'd pick the phone up. I need something from someone at my corporate office, I'd pick the phone up. There is no more picking the phone up anymore. Not even socially, there's no picking the phone up anymore.
And they're actually uncomfortable if you want to do that. For young people today, for the most part, go ask a young person if they would feel comfortable if you just called them. They'll be like, oh, why would you do that? Because it's like, what? Just text me. And
how do we get there?
Well, because that creates an easy shortcut. So human nature is you're going to take the path of least resistance. Yes, that's what it is. That's why it's so pervasive, is because it's easier. If it was harder to text someone, it wouldn't be popular. But it's easier because you can text someone, hey, do you want to hang out? And you don't have to see their face. You don't have to respond and see their response.
So cowardly to me.
Yes.
As an older person, again, looking at it, that's so cowardly.
It's a cultural difference. And in their culture, that intrusive nature of an in-person conversation or a phone call, it's not necessary. Why would you do that? Why would you put yourself through that? I mean, I had a young person's, and it was, matter of fact, my son many years ago. I said to him, he was texting back and forth, trying to make plans with a friend. And I said, why don't you just call him? Because it would be like a 2-minute conversation as opposed to 10 minutes of texting back and forth. And this is wasting time. He said, well, I don't like that because what happens during those uncomfortable silence moments? And I was like, whoa.
He articulated to you that way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's what they feel. They don't want to have that moment of like, well, what now? Like, I asked you your question, you responded, but now what? And there's a significant breakdown in communication skills because of it. And
how does that serve them going out into the work life and maybe starting a family?
Well, it doesn't. But the problem is our culture is changing that much. That is becoming the norm. So we are going to be dinosaurs one day. The people who want
I feel
to,
like it already.
Yeah, exactly. and they
a cool dinosaur.
Right. But they will shape a world where the stuff we are doing is unnecessary and seems archaic and antiquated. And that's sad, but it also will make it so that the person who knows how to do those things will run the joint, because you know what I mean, because that will be a skill set. It'll be a skill set that no one will understand. I'm like, how's he so good at just talking to people face to face? And it
just sounds so out there.
Yeah, it's scary.
It is scary. I knew something was odd 7-8 years ago. My kids at that time we got them little iPhones.
Yeah.
I went to some location where they were having a party. And there was like 8 or 9 of them, a party at that age, right? Just, pizza party.
Right.
And they're all sitting around with the TV on and some music, and they're not really looking at each other. They're all on their phone, but they're literally talking to each other.
Yep.
It was
and
bizarre.
Think about that. That is not uncommon today for people to be with each other and communicating by their phones, sending each other memes and stuff like that. And it's like, I've had to tell young people, my children included, put your phone down. Just talk to each other. And to that, they'll look at you like, why? What do you mean? Everyone else has their phone, so why do you want me to? That's what I would get all the time, because I'm that mean dad. And I'm like, no, put your phone down. This is ridiculous. But in their world, that's the way you communicate.
Do you find that inherently bad, or do you just find it a paradigm shift and it's just the new norm now?
I'm biased, but I believe it's damaging. Mm-hmm. I do, because you're losing skills. You and I sending an email didn't change our skill set, right? Because sending an email is fundamentally the same as writing a letter. Mm-hmm. It's just it's an electronic form, right? So we're not losing any skills. The fact that they're relying on the digital realm, they're actually relying on it to the detriment of their in-person skills. These are the soft skills that make great business people. These are the soft skills.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And so if you're losing skills in order to use that technology, the technology is actually
emojis and abbreviations for words.
Exactly.
And acronyms and things like that.
Right. So yeah, I believe it's a detriment. But again, I'm biased because I come from that old culture. So 30 years from now, we might seem like idiots. But someone said to me once, the only difference between a genius and a fool is time, right? So in time, we will figure out who was right. And I believe that one day we're going to have a society full of people who don't have the ability to do what you and I are doing. And then there's going to be a select few people who understand that and have the ability to manipulate all those other folks.
Okay, so let's talk still back in adolescence.
Okay.
The importance of group activities, whether it be sports, whether it be something else, clubs and so forth, to me has never been more important, for the simple fact that getting the physical benefits are there.
Right.
But the cognitive benefits of looking someone in the eye, coordinating. Yes. I can think of 5-7 years coaching 14-year-old baseball team where it was good to see them talking with each other.
Even arguing. Yeah, talking,
right.
Figuring out your differences, arguing, doing it in person, doing it in real time. It's of paramount importance, and I cannot stress it enough. And I have so many clients who are young and feel isolated, but would not even consider joining a club or a team. And I tell them all the time, join something. You have no idea what you're going to learn when you just agree to be in the same room with a group of people who have common interests. Like, you're going to have instant friends, and you're going to learn all kinds of different social skills just by being there. Yeah, I can't say enough about it.
Talk about adolescence and the beginning of romantic relationships. That has to be stifled now from the way that we were raised to a degree. Like, how do we even view that? Like, how would we view that? Yeah,
so it's funny because I actually we were planning to do a show about this, comparing the style, the courting style of different generations. And I had a couple of interns at the time who were young, and they were telling me, the way that you think of dating, that doesn't exist anymore.
Help extrapolate that for me.
So what I was told was that, in my day, when I was young, you would call someone on the phone and we talk a little bit, and maybe, do you want to go out, and all that stuff.
Was there cell phones? Because there's the difference in age.
Well, okay, so
I had to call a landline, hoping the parent didn't pick up the phone. I had to deal with the parents.
Yes,
the brothers and sisters.
Oh yeah, I grew up in an age where you call on the phone, and if mom's on the phone, you're just not going to get to talk to your girlfriend. Oh yeah.
Okay.
I did all that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm older than I look.
Okay.
And because I got my first cell phone, I think, when I was 19.
All right.
Yeah. So I grew up, calling my best friend or my girlfriend's house phone.
The landline.
Yeah, and mom answering the phone, and you might get yelled at if you call a little too late, and all that stuff.
That's life experience.
That's exactly. And that doesn't exist anymore. They don't do that now. They text each other. I mean, young people today, they often don't even exchange phone numbers. They exchange handles on, like,
WhatsApp or something.
Yeah, all those different apps. Snapchat. What's your Snapchat? What's your and then they'll DM each other, and it's totally different. And when I look at that, me being, one, old, and two, from a different culture, I'm like, what is wrong with you kids? But I also have to remember, culture is a thing. So in their culture, this is the normal.
Right.
And so I have to remind myself not to judge it, not to
especially in your line of work.
Exactly. I have to understand it rather than judge it. But but the old man in me is going, if you kids don't just pick up a phone, you know what I mean? Take her to the movies. Jeez, I mean, how hard is that? But yeah, it's just a different world.
So I mentioned before, I'm in real estate, and my client base runs from couples in their early 20s all the way up to senior citizens, 80 years old, and I have to adapt my method of communication depending on the client demographics.
Yes.
I've had to learn. I was pushing and screaming, but I was dragged into different arenas. But it does creep in even to us. Like, I use a video service, so if I have to take a video of me, like a selfie video, explaining an involved circumstance for my client, and I want to get all that information to the client without having that back and forth of a phone, I will do that. So I find myself being a little bit of a hypocrite because I do use it, but I still want to hear the client's thoughts and opinions. I think it's vital.
Right.
My younger clients are okay with never having that voice communication.
Right.
And that's fine. It's just different.
It's different.
I remember the fun of being in my teens and in my 20s and the social things we did and interacting on a human basis with that person we took it for granted.
Right.
And now I can't imagine going back and maneuvering those experiences digitally.
Right. Well, but again, I keep saying it's culture. Our culture is fundamentally different than theirs. So, I tell my son all the time, I wouldn't even have considered spending an entire day playing video games. That wouldn't make any sense when I was young. Because I had an Atari. I had the original Atari, and we had I remember having the original Nintendo. That was really the one that was like, my teen years, we got a Nintendo. I was super excited about it. But I remember that first day we played Duck Hunt for like 15 minutes, and then we went outside and rode our bikes because I wouldn't even have considered You want to sit here all day and play this video game? What do you mean? No, I'm going outside. And you'd have to pay me to come inside. But today, the average kid, you got to pay him to go outside.
Do you think they were more susceptible to being led into this digital age because the society looked a little scary to them? So spending time alone but still having all that communication, do you think, case in point, because I thoroughly believe that the news was co-opted in the early 90s and turned into entertainment.
I agree 100%.
And I think a lot of that entertainment is very frightening, and the things that we call, I had this conversation with my wife and many people, and hey, I get it. You want to watch crime dramas.
Right.
It's not my thing because of the violence. It disturbs me.
Yeah.
It's just my thing. But we've turned like real life violent circumstances, and I think that's numbed out our society a bit. And that's a big conversation, I know. But do you think it was these children were more susceptible over the past 15 years to buy into this digital the ease, but also because life might be a big scary world out there?
That's a good question, because I tend to believe the opposite.
Okay.
Actually, I believe that the instant gratification of the technology stuff,
expediency.
Yes. I believe that is so comforting that now everything feels scary.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It sure does.
Because now anything that you have to wait on, anything that creates any sort of suspense, anything that isn't just instantly the way I want it, feels anxiety provoking. And so I believe that the problem is we have a society full of people who don't have the ability to cope anymore, because they don't need their coping skills the way you and I needed them. When I would go outside and play, if I fell down on my bike, I had to get myself home in order to tell my mom that I got hurt, which means you got to pick yourself up. You can be crying, but you're going to be dragging your bike home. And today, they could lay there and cry, text their mom comes to pick them up. You know what I mean? So the whole get up, dust yourself off, get home, that's gone now. And so I believe that everything feels more scary because they don't have the coping skills that we were required to have.
That's a great point. That is a great point. That's a very well thought out.
Yeah, well, I spend way too much time thinking about this stuff. Yeah,
coping skills. That's fascinating. Now, okay, you picked up the phone. You were 14, 15, 16, pick up the phone, you call that girl that you're thinking about like nonstop for all those weeks, and you finally get the courage to call, and you pick up the phone knowing that the mom or dad, hopefully the mother, but it could be the dad.
Could be dad, right. You just got to take your chances.
All that anxiety was almost, to some degree, I guess, positive anxiety.
Yes.
It's part of the childhood experience. Right.
It teaches you about life.
It does, but we've taken away some of those things, and there's no real life buffers anymore. It's straight to the point.
Yes,
and that creates an immediacy for requests for answers. Right.
Yes,
and that brings anxiety.
And to me, that is the nature of the problem right there. That's the heart of it. Is that too much of our lives is instant, right? So.
It's not slowing down.
It's not going to slow down. Yeah. Too much of what we do, too much of our world is instant gratification based. And that makes it so that now when you have to just deal, it feels awful. And so it's the same with, you think about a baby and their immune system. If you made it so that your child lived in a bubble, never got any scrapes or bruises, never ate a handful of dirt, none of that, they would actually get more sick.
Right.
Because they've not been exposed to a normal amount of stuff for their body to fight off. So that's your physiological immune system. But your mental and emotional immune system works the same way. And people don't think about that. People don't think about if you've never had to call her and risk dad answering the phone and know when dad answers and says, what do you want? You better have a good answer, right? You never have to build that strength. And that strength is important because that's a transferable skill. Because now I can call my boss and say, hey, I'm not feeling good today. Whereas a young person, I don't want to make that phone call. Because what if he's mad at me? And that changes everything about our lives.
That's a great point. And they might be able to avoid it if the company has the ability for them to text or
That's
email
exactly
in.
Right. Especially if they've bought into the full digital thing. And just send me an email, send me a text message. You're never going to get that phone call from that. And I'm like you. Listen, you better call me. You know what I mean? I'm old school. If you walk into my house, you better greet me because it's my house. You know what I mean? And when my students know, when I see you on campus, say hello. I'm just old school like that. But that's because I believe that those skills are being lost, and that is damaging to us as a society.
And I was mistaken by someone one time. He thought I was requesting formality because I was old. And I wasn't requesting him to be called Mister. You just say something, greet me.
Right.
It isn't that I'm old. I think it's just courteous, and that's part of the human experience is greeting people, right?
But that's now considered old school. Yeah. It's crazy, but what we would have considered baseline, normal, common courtesy stuff, that's now considered old school values.
So a young person gets their first job. Let's just say it's at a fast food place. Now they have to deal with, limited interaction, but there is some one-to-one interaction with society.
Right.
How does that translate? Do they learn on the job? Hopefully their parents have given them a decent amount of one-to-one contact before they get there.
Right. Yeah, and some of it is trial by fire. You know what I mean? So some of it you learn on the job because there's no choice. When you're standing at the cash register at McDonald's, you're going to have to talk to people because people are going to come up and they're going to be mad at you and they're going to be, right? So you learn it. But that's my point. My point is if you are put in a situation where you have no choice, then you can handle it. But you ask that same person before they've ever been put in that situation, they'll tell you they can't. And so I'm a firm believer in, no, get in there, jump in, do it. Because you can. You have the ability. It's just that you've never had to do it before. And you know, the hard part is getting them to recognize that they won't die. You know what I mean? And so you learn it on the fly because that's part of human nature is the ability to do those things.
Let's bridge the conversation. Let's turn a little bit to what I watched, a theme that you had in multiple episodes of House Call, where young people really uber concerned about impressions, whether it be physical impressions of people liking their things,
right? How
they look in their imaginary world compared to what their reality might be, the distorted nature of that, how I think likes is now some kind of, they see it being currency for a very select few who have monetized it out there,
right?
That creates a whole false illusion that there's a career path there. I mean, can you talk a little bit about all that?
Yeah, well, I feel bad saying this because I'll sound like a hypocrite, but today YouTuber is what rapper and basketball player used to be. Everybody wants to be a YouTuber now, and it's because or an Instagram model, or everyone on earth believes, every young person believes that they're going to be the next whatever because they've seen somebody get millions of likes and
a handful of people.
Right, and you know, I don't say to people that's ridiculous because I have a show, so I can't say don't do it. But the difference is people don't recognize that, first of all, most people are never going to make any money at it. And second of all, it's not real. It's not real in the way that you think it is. You know,
What is real?
Well, that's an excellent question. What is real? You know, I don't know if there is a real, but unfortunately today young people see like the Kim Kardashians of the world, and they idolize that in a way that is unhealthy in my opinion.
Agreed.
Because I can recognize, and I've borrowed their formula, so I'm not hating on the Kardashian formula, but what they've done is they've monetized a version of their life. You know, people don't realize that that's pretend, right? That's creating entertainment for you to watch. And it's good for them that they've been able to create a system that builds wealth for them by doing it, but it's not real. It's not a real life.
So did this start even before social media? Did this start with reality television maybe in the mid-90s?
I can't stand.
Mid-90s?
I can't stand. I wish
there is no reality television.
Yeah, I wish I could go back and convince someone, don't do it, because it changed our world completely. And it's exactly what you're saying. It's people believing in that lie, which is, I mean, all those shows, it's all fake. Every last bit of it is fake. I have a family member who's in television, and it's everything that you think is these unscripted fights that are going on. It's all fake. But people are buying into it, so then they aspire to that life. And that's the problem. The problem is, I watched Goodfellas as a kid, but I didn't want to be a gangster because of it. You know what I mean? I recognized that De Niro was playing a part.
Agreed.
People don't realize that Kim Kardashian is playing a part. That's the problem. And so if everyone could recognize it's fun to watch, but I know what it is, then that'd be great. But that's not what's happening. People are saying, I want to be like that. And so then they aspire to it, and they live a life that is similar. So now you have 15-year-old girls taking pictures of themselves, scantily clad, and posting them because in their mind, this is a viable life choice. And it is a viable life choice. If you've got the stuff, then sure, you could find a way to make it. There are 8-year-olds making millions of dollars on YouTube, so I can't tell you that's not going to happen.
Those are outliers, though.
Yes, those are outliers. But
there's always outliers. Even my generation, there was a guy invented a pet rock. He was 18 or something. There's always going to be an outlier.
So what I always say to young people is, whatever your dream, go ahead and chase it. I don't care what it is. And if you chase YouTube star the right way, you will learn transferable skills.
No question.
That will help you. Because you and I talked about how difficult it is to execute a show properly. So if you learn all that stuff, even if you figure out that you're not going to blow up on YouTube, you will learn how to do the technical side, and you could work on some TV show that's a reasonable living. So
if they have a passion for it.
If you have a passion for it, go for it. There's a no-lose situation involved if you're being honest with yourself. The problem is a lot of times I think people aren't being honest with themselves. That's what I think is the downside of it.
It's so, again, older person looking in, but it's still in the sphere. I mean, we're still in the sphere. There's so much about it. It's so disingenuous.
Yes.
With photo filters and photo manipulations, and now video manipulation is horrifying. What's coming there?
Right.
It's just, I can tell a lot of it is not real.
Right.
So it does create this illusion world, and I think it even started in the 2000s. I mean, that was the biggest complaint I think for web dating, even for all demographics. People weren't representing them correctly.
Right. Yeah, the whole catfish experience is like people presenting this completely false image and fooling you into believing that's who they are. And yeah, it's a crazy world. It's crazy that this is even a possibility. And now, like you're saying, there are people out there with the skills to create video that you and I wouldn't be able to tell is completely false, made up. It looks 100% real. And so it's like, well, this is actually dangerous. This is because I could because I could make it look like you were out in the street doing something that, and you weren't even there.
Right.
If I, and so now it's like, here's the other really dangerous part of this, because we're living it right now. Because of all that, no one knows what's real anymore. Nobody knows, because I'm big on expertise. So if I want to learn how to paint, I'm going to go listen to the painters.
Absolutely.
Right? If I want to know about some scientific thing, I'm going to find a scientist.
That's a wise way to live.
Right. But today, because of social media and all this digital manipulation, everything appears to be equal, right?
Okay.
So I have a PhD in psychology. If I go on to Facebook and have a conversation about human behavior, I could be talking to a plumber that is speaking boldly, and a third party would have no idea that one of us is actually a trained professional, literal expert. The other isn't. You know what I mean? People don't know because, and even if they look at our profiles and figure out, oh, this guy says he has a PhD and he's a professor, but you don't know if that's real.
People lie.
Exactly. You don't know. And so, it's really weird because like right now I'm all into video. I'm learning about shooting film and stuff like that. And I keep saying to people, I need to go take a class because I don't want to learn it from YouTubers because I don't know who those YouTubers are.
Yeah, you can't vet them out.
I can't vet them. Right. So I'm going to take a class somewhere so that I can get the basics from someone who has at least been vetted. But that is lost right now because right now I can learn how, and I learned like a month ago how to install my new dishwasher. I learned it on YouTube.
Oh, there's a good use of YouTube.
Yes.
There's people that are out there genuinely sharing things.
Right.
Hacks, they call it on life.
Right.
I installed a headlight in a car one time with one.
Right. And it's wonderful. And in all fairness, I am an actual professional. I am on the internet, so you can find me talking about how to manage your anxiety.
Absolutely.
And so is that not good? Yeah, it is good. It's good. The problem is most people don't know how to vet their sources. Most people don't even want to vet their sources. They actually look...
Takes work.
Right. Because most people are looking for information that confirms what they already believe. Right?
Boy,
so
that'll take us on a whole nother
yes. But
that's politics today.
That's the whole political world today. Yeah.
Let's go there.
Let's go for
it. I just had this conversation. I'd love to get your take on it. So I'm 54.
Okay.
So I remember as a kid, Walter Cronkite.
Yep.
And, now I wasn't, I was indoctrinated by elders that were Republicans. I was indoctrinated by elders in this town that were Democrats. I was really confused growing up, and I never really thought it mattered too much.
Right.
So I'm not a big party guy to
Okay.
this day. But I will tell you that it's a phenomenon that we seek out news in this country that'll make us either feel good because we expect to hear a certain thing, or if we're not feeling good about things, we'll look at a place that'll give us the least bad news.
Right.
So we feel not so bad.
Right.
And that's happening, I think, today in the pandemic, and I think
100%.
it's the cause of a lot of misinformation.
Yes.
It just my observation.
No, and that's actually what I was alluding to when I was saying people don't know what's real anymore. It's that you can't even trust the news sources anymore.
What is news?
Exactly. Like what stations? As a matter of fact, I forget what it was. I saw an article that said, I don't even want to say what news source it was, but a news source was sued for saying the wrong things, and their defense was, it's entertainment. We are not required to speak the truth.
I saw that.
And to me, that's
editorialized.
Yeah, it's like, wow, that's how dangerous is that? Because to me, the idea that Walter Cronkite was telling me something and it was purely opinion, that would have been unheard of. That doesn't make any sense in my world. You know what I mean? When Bryant Gumbel and Connie Chung told a story, my assumption was this is journalism. They're just presenting the facts.
I believe it was.
You know what I mean?
In that era.
I believe it was as well. Maybe we could be wrong. Maybe we're being naive, but I believe that the expectation was tell the truth. Point out what's going on.
I think there was an honor then in journalism. I think, and they also felt if they don't, they're going to be called out on it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
By all political persuasions.
By all parties involved.
Yeah.
And so now to have politicians and journalists on both sides of the aisle,
No question.
that will manipulate the truth for their benefit and present it as fact unapologetically, to me is scary.
And it's gone way beyond that. I mean, it's now corporate decisions made that way. It's full productions.
Right.
And I think what our kids, I got collectively I have 5 kids. My stepchildren I had the Brady Bunch minus 1. Like they're 26 through 17 now.
Nice.
But they don't know what real news even looks like.
Right.
I mean, I remember when it started to get a little slanted there, even like in I don't know, early 90s, I felt, but you could always go to the McClare something news hour, or you were starting to get cable. You could like go to the BBC if you really wanted to find an alternative opinion about how the other rest of the world looks at us.
Yes,
that'll give you some, maybe some less unbiased stuff. That doesn't even exist anymore. These kids don't. These kids think that editorialized opinions constitute news. Right. Because that's what mom and dad watch. Right. I come home, MSNBC's on. I come home, Fox News is on.
Exactly. And that is an hour at a time, somebody standing there giving you their opinion. Mm-hmm. And people eat it up like it's truth. And it's like, well, we're in trouble. If this is what we're going to keep doing, then we're in trouble.
Right. And I don't know how to solve that problem, because like I will talk to a generation above me, doctor, that will tell me that, well, Cronkite was this way and Peter Jennings was this way, and they were always doing that. Well, I didn't feel it. Yeah. As a young person watching, I didn't feel any slants anyway. Right. It seemed a lot more altruistic and a lot more real than what's going on today.
It seemed less biased.
It did.
I believe it was. But
I think
again,
so too.
Maybe we're naive, maybe we were kids, but today they're not even pretending to be unbiased. It's like, and so what I'll do, I don't watch television. So
neither do I.
I'm anti-television. But when there's a
show, no television.
Right. When
we'll do the news.
Exactly. When I really want to see a quote unquote news take on things, I will go to like CNN or MSNBC and Fox News, and I'll watch both, and my desire will be to distill it and figure out, okay, what are the parts that they seem to...
You shouldn't have to work that hard.
Right, exactly. You shouldn't. You shouldn't have to work that hard. But the problem is, I don't trust any of them. So, you know what I mean? It's like, in the midst of all this crap that they're saying, I'm going to try to find the facts of what happened. And it's very difficult. So then you end up going to these kind of alternative sources like the BBC or NPR, and trying to get the distilled facts. But it's hard. But truthfully, today, for my sanity and my peace, I try to leave it all alone anyway.
In reality, would you agree, and if you don't, please tell me.
Yeah.
But talking to a young person who's afraid of watching the news, I don't see any problem with really trying to not mentally ingest that every day, because I think I'm more interested in the things that I've decided to do with my life. Yeah,
so that, for me, I tell people all the time, it's not benefiting your life to be sitting there watching that, because I believe that I live a fuller life because I'm not watching reality TV, because my wife, my wife loves reality TV. You're not a bad person if you watch reality TV.
No, not at all.
However, I say to my wife all the time, you're watching someone else live their life when you could be out living your life.
Amen.
And
I love that statement.
The flip side of that is people say, like, I just want to zone out. I want my, I get it. You have a hard job, so you want to watch some mush or something. But for me, I'll pick up my camera and I'll try to go shoot something, or I'll go upstairs and work on some music, or I will, I'll write, or
I feel those things are more productive. I listen, I love America. People can do what the heck they want.
Right.
But I just think about productivity. I can be very productive doing things I really enjoy.
Yeah.
As a decompression tool.
Exactly. Right. So I decompress in that way. I decompress by doing stuff.
This is decompression for me because I love it so much.
Yeah.
I know you enjoy the medium too. I can feel it.
I love it. And we talked about, my wife says to me, like, you pretty much always work, right? And I'm like,
it's not work.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel like work to me. It really doesn't. I just enjoy this, and I feel, whatever word you want to put in there, blessed or fortunate or whatever, I feel like I have a life where I get to do the stuff that I like to do, and I have a comfortable living from it, and I get the ability and the freedom to just be creative and do cool stuff.
Right.
And I wouldn't trade that for anything. And so I really do appreciate that ability. I mean, it's not free to have these kinds of, like to do this and buy the equipment or put stuff up and maybe, put money into it so more people will see it and stuff like that. I feel very fortunate to be able to do what I love and not care that it's literally never made me a you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
I mean,
Yep.
So for me, that's the outlet. To me, I want to be productive till the day I am no longer breathing, because I don't even understand what people do. I don't, like, people have been telling me, like, during this whole quarantine, I've been so bored. I'm like, really? That's cool.
I'm glad you said that.
I have no idea how you manage that, because I didn't slow down. I mean,
no, I didn't either.
Yes, I got. What I did get was more time with my family. That part I appreciated, because I had no choice. I couldn't leave the house. You and I didn't meet the first time because we both made the choice. It's not worth it. Let's just,
Especially, we weren't. There was no way we were doing that.
Exactly. But so I got more time with my family, and that was wonderful.
Right.
But I
now
didn't.
He wants out.
Right. I'm like, baby, I gotta go. But
just kidding.
I didn't stop being productive because to fill that void of not having. So my practice, I probably lost 75% of my practice in the quarantine.
Sure.
And I filled that void through learning video. So because in my show, I don't do any of the video. It's all the other guy. But all the equipment is sitting in my house, and I'm like, I'm bored. Let me just pick up this stuff and see what it's like. And now I love it, and I'm all into it, and I want to take a class, and because I'm just into learning. I'm just into like, let's do stuff. Come on, let's go.
That just happened to me though. It's funny you said that. I had a conversation the other day. I've become a better student of anything I'm interested in the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
It really hit me hard where I love a baseball fanatic. I love doing the things with my kids. I loved being a dad when they were younger for my daughter and my son. Loved it. Now they're gone. I'm looking like, wow, I could have been this industrious while they were growing up too. But the things are becoming more fascinating to me the older I get. Does that make any sense?
It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense, and I honestly believe the only reason I figured out a lot of this stuff relatively early is because of what I went through.
Sure.
And I didn't have a choice. I was either going to figure out how to be happy or I was going to die. Literally.
I get it.
And so
I get it.
So that's why now I think I have this passion for life is I shouldn't even be here. You know what I mean? And literally, I shouldn't be where I am. And if you would ask any expert, take this kid at 7 years old, put him through this stuff, and then have it go badly, where you see this ending? None of them say this guy becomes a doctor.
Right.
This guy, he's wildly successful. Blah blah blah. Nobody says that. So I'm here. And so I'm like, then bring it on. Let's live life to the fullest. Let's go for it. Let me give back as much as I humanly possible. As much as humanly possible, I want to live life and give back to the world, because what I was able to get out of this thing is unbelievable. So now I just thirst for knowledge, thirst for opportunities to grow, and it's actually off-putting. So there's. In my world, there's like this divide. There are people who think I walk on water because of all the cool stuff that I do, and there are people who can't stand me because they're like, who the heck does this guy think he is?
I feel bad for those people.
Yeah, and I'm convinced that it's because they see people like us, and it's it's like holding a mirror up to them. So they see it, and they're like, well, if he can do that, why am I not doing it? You know what I mean?
We're not putting the mirror up. They're putting the mirror up.
And that's exactly right. I actually talked about that. I made a video about haters, and I said that haters are not responding to you. So for example, when I decided I'm going to go get a PhD, there were people who were like, scrunching their noses up at it. It's not logical to think that they were scrunching their noses up because they believed I couldn't do it. That doesn't make any sense because they don't know me that well, right? What it actually probably means is they're questioning whether or not they could do it. And they're responding to that because they're saying, well, why would he want to do that? I distinctly remember when I was young, my mom, when she was like 45, went back to school because she was a stay-at-home mom when I was a kid, and then she got a job like in retail or something when my father died. And then eventually she realized I want more, and she went back to school. She's now 40-something years old. She goes back to school. And I remember telling one of my friend's parents, and she said, why would she want to do that? And I remember realizing in that moment, that doesn't make any sense. That what it has to mean is you're questioning whether or not you could handle it, because it doesn't make any sense that you're thinking about whether or not she can handle it.
Right.
How do you know what she can handle?
Right. We're too self-absorbed as the people anyway.
Exactly. All you're really ever doing is thinking about yourself.
Uh-huh.
And so when people see me and they scrunch their noses up, well, yeah, but he did that, but he's not all that. They're not thinking about me. Because that doesn't make any sense. You see me doing something, think about it. My show is all about helping people. That's all I really care about.
It sure is.
And so if you don't like that does it says something about you.
There's no question.
Right.
Yeah, to be intimidated, and it's a little bit of intimidation there, I think, too, right?
Yes.
Personal intimidation.
Yes, it is, and that's my Achilles heel. That right there. My Achilles heel is I'm so unapologetic about I know myself, I know who I am, I know where I want to be in the world. Mm-hmm. And people are intimidated sometimes by that. They're
no question.
It's like
no question.
If your light shines bright enough, there will be people who are uncomfortable. But what I've learned is the people who know who they aren't uncomfortable.
We talked a little bit off camera about that too.
Yeah.
It's really I will take it all the way back and say that as a little child in Bible study, they would give you the 7 sins.
Yeah.
And some are so outlandish, as a young person, I would never do that.
Right.
But the one that really stuck out to me to be insidious, and it has proven itself out to be, is envy.
Yeah, yeah.
Envy is such a root of so many other problems.
Yes.
And I just don't know why, even for our own family, for our own dear friends, we can't be happy for the well-being or successful of others.
Right.
Why is that so difficult?
Well, but you're already touching on it. It's that people, when they see you doing well, it on some level is making them question their choices. Particularly this is how I know this is true. If you see somebody who's wildly successful and you meet them and you know they're wildly successful, your assumption will be, well, they were born that way. They have a head start. They never had to struggle for anything, because what you're doing is you're rationalizing in your mind, it must be that they're where they are because it was easy for them to do that. Because what you don't want to do is think about, well, wait a minute, if they started the same way I started and they're, yeah. And so that doesn't feel good.
Right.
And nobody wants to deal with that. And so
got it.
That's the problem. So that's what I have found in my life, is that a lot of people that I've known for my whole life turn their nose up because they're like, who does that guy think he is? Mm-hmm. And what it is they're like, well, how did he start where I started and he's where he is and I'm where I am? That doesn't make any sense to me. And the fact of the matter is, it's just that I realized that I don't have boundaries, and you haven't figured that out yet. I truly believe
that's a good statement.
Yeah, I believe in my heart I'll do whatever I want to do. Mm-hmm. If I decided today, and I truly put my heart and my mind into it, if I decided I'm going to be president, I bet I would do it. I bet I'd get darn close. And that's actually the one thing I kick myself about, is when I ran, I didn't fully dive in.
You didn't buy into it completely.
Yeah, I did it halfway, and
which isn't the way you're wired.
No, it's not. But it's because that was so the two big dreams of my life. You go back, I used to want to be Miles Davis. When I was 15, I wanted to be Miles Davis. But aside from that, the two...
There was only one Miles.
Exactly. And I gave up on that one.
You came a close second.
Right. But other than that, the two things that I truly dream of, and to this day I still dream of, is having a television show and being in Congress, right? Mm-hmm. And it was so big that I truly hadn't bought into, this is real, let's go for it. It was kind of like, it was a fun idea, mm-hmm. and magically maybe it'll happen, but I didn't do what I normally do, which is sit down and figure out, and study how does one actually do this. And also it was that I have a pretty cool life set up for myself. And in order for me to truly go for it, I'd have to give up that life.
Yeah, sacrifices.
Yeah. And if I'm being honest, I wasn't fully ready to say, I'll give this up for the chance at politics. You know what I mean? And so I kind of had one foot in and one foot out. And that's why I wasn't successful. And I know if I ever do it again, it'll have to be that I'm willing and able to hang up everything else and let's go for it. Because I believe that's the only way to do anything.
Everything has a price.
That's exactly right.
Are you willing to pay that price?
Are you? And that's what I think a lot of people see when they see a person who's really kind of like killing it. If you feel a little bit of that hurt in your stomach, it's because you're realizing I'm not actually willing to do what it would take to get to where that person is.
Have you ever known somebody in your life that was close to you, friend, cousin, family, whatever, brother or sister, that you actually felt bad? I mean, you didn't have a right to feel bad. You didn't have to feel bad, but you actually felt bad that your success was so detrimental to their mental state.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking, truthfully.
Yes.
And you and I talked a little bit about that before we got rolling, that it was so damaging in my life that I called my mother, like, what am I doing? What's going on here? And my mother said something really powerful to me, which is, your light shines so bright that it's difficult for some people. If you feel lost in your life, you don't want to be standing beside the person who you think has it all figured out.
Right.
Because by comparison, you feel like you're unworthy somehow. And that is really difficult for me because I've come to realize that the things that I've accomplished, they're not about me. Right. So that's why I don't feel boastful. Someone listening to this, someone watching this will say, wow, this guy really thinks a lot of himself. But the fact of the matter is, that's not what it is. I wholeheartedly believe that the only explanation for my success is that I'm a vehicle for change in some way, right? So, like, I'm going to help some people. I had to go through
the mission.
That is exactly right. And so it's not about me. So if it's not about me, I can go as hard as I want.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, but there are people who are intimidated by that confidence, by that.
Confidence is the word that constantly gets intermeshed with ego.
Ego.
Constantly.
Yeah. You got a big ego. And it's like, well, listen, I remember when I was in my doctoral training,
okay,
one of my advisors said to me, you think a little bit too much of yourself. And
wow.
And I remember, and it was a person who felt like he needs to be brought down a peg.
Right.
And I just remembered thinking, so you'd rather me have self-esteem issues and feel bad and be apologetic. But what I've come to realize, and the difference in my life is that I understand what the flip side feels like, because I was there, right? I recognize that when I felt like I was awful and unworthy and life wasn't worth living, it was because I felt personally like I'm not worth it, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not good enough. My father committed suicide. So the childish reasoning is, if I had been more lovable or something like that, then he wouldn't have wanted to do that.
Right.
But I had to figure out, because it was a life and death situation, I had to figure out that's not about me. I'm fundamentally worthy of love and success simply because I exist. And so if that's the case, if someone's going to be wildly successful, I pick me. Because I love me some me. Now, today, I love me and I choose me to be the winner every single time. Right. And so when you hear me singing my praises, there are people who go, oh man, geez, why doesn't he get off of his high horse? But I'm like, I am the example of what it would be like if that kid that you tell you can be anything you want to be, if he actually believed you, this is what it looks like. You know what I mean? And a lot of people don't think about that. A lot of people don't think about when you go into
Absolutely right.
Like when you go tell that kid, come on, you believe in yourself, you can do it, whatever you want to do, whatever you dream of, you can do it. if they truly 100% bought that story, this is what it would look like. You know, someone who's out just doing stuff, you know, but the thing that I take very, very seriously is you can't find anything that I do that's purely for me, because that's not a thing in my world. I don't just want to be successful. I believe like the Jeff Bezoses of the world, they're bad people in my opinion, because simply wanting to be selfishly like wealthy and popular and all that stuff, that's just not a good person. I want to be...
It's coming from a different place.
Yeah. I want to be successful because it gives me the opportunity to help more people. You know?
Did you ever hear Zig Ziglar?
I've heard that name.
Zig Ziglar, he was a big sales training guy.
Okay.
He did a lot of work with Jim Rohn, Les Brown.
Okay.
Guys that I just generations ago really bought into.
Yeah.
Zig had a phrase that said, if you help enough people get what they want, you can have everything.
Yeah.
I hear the life that you're leading kind of pretty much right square with that statement.
And that's interesting. I'd never heard that, but that's exactly the way I live. I've come to realize if I consistently do what will be most helpful for the people around me, my success will come as a byproduct.
Yeah. I always say this. I don't know how you feel about this, but I always thought, going back to years in corporate and in a guitar business, if I did good business and I was kind to people and they really loved what I do and they really loved me as a person, because we got that kind of relationship going on, all the money in the world will follow along.
Right.
And in reality, the money always follows.
Right.
The good work.
Yes.
And the genuineness.
Yes.
Right?
That's what
that's capitalism. That's good capitalism.
And I believe that a lot of the problems in our world are rooted in capitalism and the ability of a person to just selfishly want more. But I believe that a good capitalist recognizes that, no, I can have as much success as I want as long as that's not the only goal.
I agree 100%.
You know what I mean?
100%.
So in my practice, I can't even tell you how many people I've seen for free because they couldn't afford it.
Right.
But I believe in my heart, every time I do that, 3 other people get my name somehow.
It's smart business too.
And
genuine business.
It always comes back.
It always does.
Always comes back.
It always will.
Right. And so that's why I don't feel bad about doing well, because it's like, listen, this is not selfishness. If I was selfish, I would cut out 90% of the stuff that I do.
You'd only take the profitable clients.
Right. Exactly.
That's what many businesses do.
Many businesses, and I can't tell them they're wrong. But my motto is, no, if you need help, just call me. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I learned from all those business mentors years ago that, look, people do great work, and you should be compensated appropriately for the work that you do. You take the money. It's what you do with the money.
Right.
And it's your motivation behind earning it.
Right.
Those two things mixed together.
That's
but
right.
you take the money you earned.
Right.
There's nothing noble about not taking the money.
Exactly.
Would you not agree?
Right. Yeah. I'm not trying to be a martyr. I'm not trying to. Yeah. No. I'm going to be compensated. I'm going to respect my skills and my training and my personhood. But it's never going to be about money.
Right.
That's the key for me. It can't.
We're on the same page, my friend.
Yeah. And so for me, making a little bit of money gives me the power to do some of the things that I want to do for myself and for my family and for my community. But it can't be about the money, because what is that? What's that help?
All money does is buy you freedom.
That's exactly
if
right.
If you're using money correctly.
If you use it right, it gives you freedom.
Would you agree?
Yeah. People say, money doesn't buy happiness. I'm like, then you're not spending it on the right stuff.
Well, or else the comment is, I hear that too, and I say, look, I've gone periods of my life where I didn't have any money.
Right.
Periods of my life where I did have money. I prefer the times that I did have money.
Right.
I'm sorry.
No,
That's just exactly
it's
what
funny
it is.
because I've said that exact thing to people. I'm like, listen, I've been poor. I've never been stinking rich, but I've done well.
Right.
I would choose doing well every single time.
Yeah,
are you kidding?
Because it can make life easier.
Yeah.
It's about eliminating problems that are remedial in life, eliminating those, and then you can't be charitable if you can't feed yourself.
Right. Exactly. And there are a lot of people who miss that. Like, I give away a lot. And I only have the ability to do that because I'm doing okay.
Right.
You know, and so who are you helping by not creating a profitable business model? Because, you know, if my dream comes true, if you know, House Call becomes wildly successful and I write some best-selling book and I make millions of dollars, I'm just going to help more people.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Because that's your mission.
yeah, that's what I want to do, and it doesn't change with a
Your
bunch of money.
philosophy.
Right. Because what drives me is the helping people part, and not the money part. The money just gives me the ability to do it more. And so that's why I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad. People say, like, you know, you do this stuff for the fame, you do it for the, you know, notoriety, blah, blah, blah. No, notoriety gives me the ability to do more for people. That's all, you know.
It also increases your voice and
That's
your reach.
Yeah. When someone asked me before I considered my run for office, why do you want to be, you know, why do you want to do this? I said, I just want a bigger microphone. I just want to help more people. And this is one way to help more people. And so, yeah, that's my thing is, like, listen, I figured out that a lot of people are struggling and hurting in this world. And I was struggling and hurting in this world. And I figured out a way to feel better. I just want to give that to somebody else. And so
I get it completely.
that's it. That's the whole bag. It's just like, let's see how many people we can help today. You know, because it's fun. It feels good. And that is selfish. Don't get me wrong. That is selfish. I enjoy helping people, you know, but I'm like, if that's my way of being selfish, then
Oh, yeah.
you know what I mean?
Absolutely right. Have you had fun?
Oh my goodness. Absolutely.
I want to ask you on this show here that I know you're this guy has a worse schedule than me, and that's pretty tight. I would
bad.
love to have you back on a regular basis here.
I would love
for you to be a regular contributor to the show, and just, you know, I would love that.
Yeah, no, listen, count me in, because
There's so many more avenues we could hit.
yeah, we could do a lot. We could do a lot. And honestly, I just like talking to like-minded people who get it. And so I actually enjoyed this because
Me too.
you know, sometimes I feel like a little bit of an alien, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and I think our paths took a different route, but I think that a lot of commonality in the arrival.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense? We never really truly arrived. But
I know what you mean.
The process of getting there.
yes, yeah. No, I'm into it, and I actually, I'll tell you the truth. I didn't expect that. I expected, I don't know why, but I expected, I expected something different, a different feel than this. And then I came here, and it's like, no, we're kindred spirits. This is like, you know what I mean? Like, this is cool. So yeah, man, anytime you want me to come back.
I had that feeling just watching your shows and so forth. But I'm a huge fan of House Call.
Oh, that's really cool. I appreciate it.
Did Juju ever get back to you, or did he miss the video?
So that's a weird story. Oh man,
you gotta tell that one before you go.
Okay, so the Juju thing, I reached out to Juju, and my team reached out to Juju, and they actually did get back to us.
Okay.
And so what happened was, we were hounding them to come to Washington, and by the time they were ready to come to Washington, the center that we were asking them to go to was closing down for the Christmas holiday. Okay. So they came to Washington and just did something different. So there was a day, there was a day when Juju was in town. I think he visited a school or something like that. And I was like so mad, because I was like, I did that. Nobody's going to acknowledge it, but I did that. And I was like, are you serious? But no, shout out to them, because they're good people. They did reach out. They wanted to help. It's just that the logistics didn't work out. And so, but we threw those kids a pizza party, right, and you know, we did good. And
you looked happy in the video.
Yeah. So it's all good. But yeah, that was I was so bitter for like 2 days. I was like,
I bet
I got Juju and nobody knows it. You know?
Doctor, how can they reach you?
I'll give you my cell phone number. Call me anytime.
For our audience.
So
there's a lot more people over there than just me.
That's a good point. So if you just go to House Call with Dr. Rueben Brock on Facebook, that's actually the best way to check out what we do and reach me. You can send me a message.
Use Google, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm easy to find.
Dr. Rueben Brock. If you
that's
can't
right.
find him,
right.
He didn't look right.
Yeah. So I'm easy to find, and I'm happy to like actually talk to people. A lot of people don't actually want that true interaction.
You're very approachable.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
And it means a lot to me to do this show. And like I said,
cool.
You hung in there with me during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But there's so many more topics and areas I want to go down, and things are going to arise in society too that I'd love to get your feedback on. Too.
Let's do it.
All right,
cool.
Dr. Rueben Brock, friends.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We are out.
All right.
That's good stuff. That's great. Did you like it?
No, I enjoyed it. I did.
I would love to have you back.